months and years about the Bridgeton landfill and the nuclear waste site. Not so much with Coldwater Creek. However, that's back in the news. They're having a big meeting tonight. Let's talk to Janelle Wright. Janelle, you're with the Coldwater Creek Facts Group. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. Yes, I'm with the Coldwater Creek Just the Facts Please group on Facebook, and our website is www.coldwatercreekfacts.com.
Okay, so Coldwater Creek is up in the Hazelwood area, which is kind of near the other area that has been in the news so much. But one of the stories is that now they're finding more radioactive contamination than they originally thought?
Yes, they're finding it's quite a bit more extensive than what they originally thought. The original plans were to test south of 270, Highway 270, and the industrial area part of Hazelwood, and that's where the creek originates, and that's where the original source piles were of the nuclear weapons waste that leached into the creek. And a lot of citizens have banded together and talked with the Army Corps of Engineers group called FUSRAP, who they are wonderful engineers who know exactly how to clean this up and safely remove it. So we've been meeting with them for several years, sharing our concerns downstream, if you will, and they have responded wonderfully. They've come in and they are taking tests. They've taken, I believe, 7,000 tests now north of 270, which is, again, downstream from where they've been for many years, and that's more of a residential and commercial area. And they have found several areas that, the testing has resulted in soil samples that had thorium-230 exceeding the values they've established as quote-unquote safe, for the community.
Okay, the place they found it, the type they found, the amount they found, how damaging is that to people in and around the area?
Well, it's important to understand there's no immediate risk. It's not like getting exposed to somebody who has the flu and then you have the flu 2 days later. This is a very serious concern for the long-term health effects. We're learning more and more every day that if you're around these radionuclides, you're fine that day, but they do alter what's happening in your body, and there's a very serious long-term effect with a long latency period that it can take several decades later to pop out, and when it pops out, it comes out with a vengeance. And we're finding that many people who are exposed as children and younger adults then 15, 20 years later come out with very unusual cancers or just cancer in general that's very difficult to battle. And young ages, people under 40 years old coming down with unusual cancers and other diseases. There
were some commercials running talking about wanting to keep the nuclear waste site buried there in Bridgeton. However, the Coldwater Creek, they've been carting that nuclear material out for years very safely and effectively, correct?
Yes. In fact, it's important for people to understand that they have actually shipped out of North County and St. Louis. I mean, imagine this, 13,000 large rail cars full of radionuclide-laden soil. 13,000 safely have been removed. Again, rail cars. And that's cost around $2 billion, and that's been happening quietly for over a decade, 2 decades, and being shipped out to a licensed repository in Idaho.
And so how much longer is that going to continue?
Well, I think a few years ago when I first learned about this and started attending meetings that hosted by the government, that was in 2011, and they were saying they were, quote, almost done. They were in the 90% range of being done, but now that the community has stepped forward, we're very pleased FUSRAP has responded to us, and they are now realizing our concerns are very valid. They are validating them every day with more thorium being found in residential and commercial areas where people actually live instead of the industrial area. Now they are saying it's going to be at least 10 to 20 years before they're done.
10 to 20 years more?
Yes.
Wow, so for the next 10 to 15 years, carrying rail trucks full of nuclear waste away from the area?
Yes.
Wow. We should mention that FUSRAP and the Army Corps of Engineers is not in charge at the Bridgeton landfill, which is where they want to go. But you're very happy with the Army Corps of Engineers and FUSRAP.
Yes. I should also mention I'm on a citizen group called the FUSRAP Oversight Committee. We, meet with FUSRAP very regularly. We talk on the phone with them almost every day, and we share community concerns. We bring up what people bring to us, and we bring them to the folks and say, hey, look, we have this concern, that concern, and they've been extremely responsive. We have several concerns still on the table that they are working with their scientists and their attorneys to try to figure out how to deal with our concerns. But they're wonderful scientists who also understand the human toll of what we believe has happened here and the magnitude of it, and they have been very responsive and great to work with on the levels of people we're dealing with. We're not dealing with, the folks in Washington
Sure.
and whatnot.
Janelle Wright is with us, Coldwater Creek's Facts Group. There's a meeting tonight?
Yes, there's a meeting tonight. It's at the James Egan Center in Florissant, which is at the corner of Waterford and Parker Roads in Florissant. The meeting is from 6 to 8:30 p.m., and it's extremely important that residents come out, both current and former residents, because the Army Corps of Engineers people want to meet people who maybe have any knowledge of moving the dirt around in the area, because the creek has been rerouted several times. There might be former residents who kind of took some of the soil from the creek banks and built up an area for their kids to play in the yard or whatever it is. You're not in trouble. That's not what the purpose of this. The purpose is to find out if any dirt was moved. If so, where was it moved? Because they need to test that soil. It's very critical.
Janelle Wright, Coldwater Creek's Facts Group. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you so much for having us.
724, Big 550, KTRS. So they've got 15 years in. They got another 15 years left of carting away nuclear waste. And yet there are commercials running saying, leave that nuclear waste there. It's not safe to move. Mm-hmm. But they're safely moving it away from Coldwater Creek, which is a stone's throw away from where the Bridgeton landfill sits now.
Right.
Interesting stuff. 725, Big 550.